Today I'm talking with Mikaela MacLean. We have a plethora of subjects we're going to tackle: astrology, gene keys, energetic aesthetics, all leading back towards the understanding of human design. I love human design as an idea and as a subject. For some reason, it's been hard for me to fully grasp. So the more people that I have come on to talk about this subject and ways that it can manifest in our physical lives and help us understand who we are as people and how we're built, and to help kind of dismiss the negative stories that we might hold on ourselves. Once we understand our human design, it almost gives us a not a pass, but an understanding of why we're good at some of the things we're good at, and why we might be considerably, quote unquote, bad at some of the things that we want to be good at. Really love this conversation. Adds a lot of clarity to my personal path and my personal life. Really hope you get something out of this conversation. We'll see you on the other side. But first, a message from our sponsor. Our healing journey can be difficult and might feel lonely at times. That's why I love sound baths. Where we can get together in a community, we intrinsically support and feel supported by others. And that combined energy can help us go deeper into our own healing journeys. And all you have to do is just lay there for 1 hour and listen to beautiful healing sounds. I'm a sound healing practitioner, and I hold sound baths on a regular basis in the greater Seattle area. You can find my next sound baths on my website at adamrealhealing.com. That's Adam, A-D-A-M, Real, R-I-E-H-L, Healing, Healing.com. AdamRealHealing.com. Your healing is worth your time. Anamkara is a gorgeous meditation and healing center, offering daily in-person and virtual services to help bring you back to the center of who you truly are. They serve through a collective of practitioners, healers, and teachers, offering daily meditation classes, one-on-one healing sessions, workshops, personal ceremonies, and private events, plus corporate and team training, all with mindfulness at the core. The center itself is located in the heart of downtown Spokane. Every part of it was built, designed, and curated for you to drop into your calm place. They have a large community space for daily meditation classes and workshops, as well as 2 one-on-one healing rooms, a community kitchen to gather for tea, plus a well-stocked apothecary for you to gather all of your self-care and ritual needs. Hannah Talbot, the owner and founder of Anamkara, dreamed of opening this space for years. It is her ultimate manifestation, and she cannot wait to share it with those in the Spokane community, but also through the virtual ethers, wherever you may be. Pop in for a class today. You can follow them on Instagram to book and stay up to date. Check out the website, the full schedule, meet the practitioners, and view all the offerings. Visit them at anamkarahealing.center. Anamkara, may you be nourished and ignited. And now an uninterrupted podcast with Mikaela MacLean. All right, welcome back to our show. Today I'm talking with Mikaela MacLean. She is an auric esthetician. I was introduced to you by a mutual friend, Hannah Talbot, who seems to be just introducing me to a bunch of amazing-ass people, and I love her dearly for that. So Mikaela has a podcast called Beauty by Design, and also is like I said, an auric esthetician. She works with a plethora of different modalities to help us understand our constitution as a human, how our energies resonate with us, and how to best utilize those energies and that understanding to get the best out of our human experience. In human design, I've had a human design practitioner on here before, and I've had my chart read a couple times, but still, it's one of those things that I grasp hard to try to understand, but it's just out of my reach. And some of it's the terminologies that are used that I know the vocabulary words, just not in the context that they get used in sometimes. But what I love about human design is it takes a lot of these modalities that I love, like the I Ching and astrology and these things that I know bits and pieces about, and it pushes them together in this kind of like human understanding modality of like, okay, so here's the way you present as a human being based off of when you were born, where you were born at, and all the physical and emotional signs around that. So first off, Mikaela, thank you so much for carving time out. I know you're a busy human being.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So you have there are a few topics that I want to get to before we get to human design, and I think some of this might help flesh out some of the understanding or lack thereof that I have of human design. The 2 things I want to start with are astrology and gene keys. Astrology is just so vast. There's so much with astrology, and part of me, and I this is from my previous existence as a human being before I kind of understood that I can have consciousness and space to hold while I'm still figuring out things. But astrology for me is just so confusing. There's terms people use all the time, like Mercury's in retrograde, which I now know that 90% of the population doesn't actually know what that means. We just like to throw terms out to help us understand or help, pass along the blame for shit going wrong. No political ties mentioned here, but, back in the day it was thanks Obama, right? Thanks Obama, right? And now it's Mercury in retrograde. Like everything goes wrong. It's like, shit, Mercury's in retrograde. Like
Totally.
I only just found out what that recently meant, within the past maybe 3 years, so now I understand what that means, but still, there's so many terminologies that we use that I think would love to be explained for myself. So where in astrology, like, so where do you kind of start with that?
It's so funny. I actually give an excuse before I work with people or I put a disclaimer out. I'm like, I'm a Pisces. And so I like from the time that I was a little kid, I was always into all of this stuff,
Yeah.
very attracted to anything sort of mystical and spiritual. So that's just always sort of been the path. You're winding down. And so I studied astrology, like, well, I think, fairly seriously, deeply for a really long time. And it's funny because, like you said, confusing. I mean, it's geometry. That's what's so funny is like I was never a math person, but
Mm.
the one type of math that I enjoyed was geometry. And I'm like, well, no wonder because, like, because it's probably not your first time doing this. And when you realize that, that there's actually there's sense to be made of all of it, and those planetary energies, how they affect us, all of that type of stuff. To me, that's what makes sense. And it's like it's archetypes, it's things like that really sort of like pull the stories all in and together
Mm.
and make that soup of each individual person. And this is actually where I'm always like when human design came into my life, I think it's been about 6 years now. It just clicked. It made so much sense. I'm like, yes, 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 astrology. And then you're like, oh, but this, because it pulls it up truly like and we'll have to talk about it like north nodes and stuff because you're also a Leo north node like me and Hannah. It's like I'm a synthesizer. I'm like, oh, all the strings. I'm always like that meme, I don't know if you know that like from It's Always Sunny, and it's like the strings are all tied
Yeah,
together.
totally. Yeah.
And like I tease people, I'm like, that's how my brain works. I see how all of this stuff, the dots connect.
Mm.
And so when you realize you're like, oh, it really has a deep and profound effect on your personality, and we can get so detailed in it. And not just personality, because I think that's a lot of times that's the deal with astrology on its own. And then you're like, oh, you come to human design, you're like, no, literally you're wired this way.
Yeah.
You've been wired this way to be a particular type of person, to transmit certain energies, whether you're aware of it or not, just through your aura,
Mm.
um, and your impact that you're meant to have on the world. So it really it's in an interesting way. It takes away so many of the questions because I always feel like astrology on its own is still vague,
Mm.
and human design makes it very specific. You know.
That resonates because, like, I was saying earlier, the astrology stuff, I understand like what month I was born in and that I'm
Mhm.
a Gemini sign. And then we get to the risings and fallings and all this stuff. And that's where I start to get a little lost. But when the first time I had my human design chart read, yeah, I mean, exactly what you just said. It kind of like just shed a light on how I am just as a human.
Mhm.
And it kind of gave me just like a breath of fresh air because some of the things that it talked about there are two things that my human design chart that I'll always remember. One was that I'm not always meant to finish the projects I start. And
Mhm.
that was like a big breath of relief for me because I hold myself accountable for that. Like I have great ideas, in my opinion. I have great ideas and I want to
Yeah.
action them. But sometimes I don't see them all the way through, but I'll find people that are better suited to do that and I'll kind of pass that off to them.
Yes.
And so in the past, I'm like, oh shit, like I would beat myself up because of that. But
Most
now it's
definitely.
like, hey, that's who I am. I'm meant to just like kind of put people in the place that they need to be, and then have them understand that. And then the other thing that I read in my human design chart was that I'm good at influencing people that know me, but people that don't know me within my circle don't really care about the information that I hold. And so
Yeah.
that also gave me a little directionality of like, okay, so how do I best, how do I best get the information out that I have? Start with the people that know me, and then from there can filter out.
Yeah.
So those two things were like, those are two things that I would
Changing.
struggle with quite a bit. My professional career before I switched into an energetic field, but now it's like, okay, that's just the way I am.
Honestly, like that's the big gift of it. And I think why it's taken off like wildfire is like it's permission to love and accept yourself
Mm,
and stop judgment. To me, I'm like, it's quantum leap to healing. It's like all those things that you thought were, wrong with you, or, I should be some other way or whatever, or why don't I have what you just said? I'm like, I know exactly what it is because I have it too about why is my reach not big enough? You're like, you're a line four, for God's sakes. Like you're supposed to be impacting and we're super influential. I'm a 4-1, you're a 4-6, Hannah's a 4-6. It's like this is why she introduces everybody and everybody gets connected through her. Like, that's what a four is here to do is hook the right people up together and flow within the relationships that already exist in your world. And I tell other fours, I'm like, it's not about us doing or go getting anything.
mm,
It's like you just tend to the relationships in your life, and that is the heavy lifting that we have to do. And everything will come through those people. But if you don't know that, you could always spend all your time like, well, why don't I have any sort of a reach? Or, like in my case, my other number being a one, it's like the studier, the investigator, I can spend all my time in that line one area. I love it there, by
uh-huh.
myself, just, like deep in stuff. And then I'm like, oh, but you know what? If you do want to have any sort of, take that further, you really do need to invest in like your community, into those relationships. And so all of a sudden you start tinkering with the way that you were actually built. It's like a manual, and things begin to unfold so easy. It's like, I always am like, it's the way you kind of get wherever you're meant to go with the least amount of resistance.
Mm,
Make it easy on yourself. I'm like, let it be easy. That's one of my mantras. Like, I
yes.
don't want to struggle through life. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Why rewrite the book if it's already there?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And
Lady.
and I've grown up in corporations, like I've taken so many different personality tests, like the Myers-Briggs and all these things that have come across. And to figure out, how best like I learn information, how best I hold space for others, disciplinary, blah, blah, blah. And so I think part of me was so relieved and enthralled with the idea that there's like a spiritual like Myers-Briggs. And I'm like, oh, cool. I
Mhm.
know this. I can understand that. And so like that was what really kind of drew me to human design is it spoke the language that or similar language that I was already used to understanding.
Yes, yes. And the other cool thing, or one of my favorite things, is like, unlike astrology, it's not predictive. It's a blueprint of your potential.
Hmm.
And it's kind of like then it puts the ownership on you. It's like, well, I always say these are the cards that you got dealt, but it's up to you. How do you want to play them? Every single thing in the chart has a high and a low expression. We know that. That's polarity, that's duality,
Hmm.
right? And when you look at every single thing, I was teasing you about, that 39, your Mercury, and I'm like, oh, you're meant to be somebody who pokes and provokes. But you can do that from a high or a low consciousness place,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
You can use every single thing, good and quote bad, right? No, nothing is one side or the other. It's like, how do I want to animate this? And how do I want to use the gift that I've been given, or the many, many, many gifts that exist in the chart? You're like, that's inherent to me.
Hmm.
And I'm like, that's what I think is so cool. When all of a sudden you get it called out,
Yeah.
you're like, whoa, dude, yes, that is me. But also, I have total access to the other side of this. And that's a really beautiful thing. And I can use it. I can use it. It can be a gift. It can be something that shines within me. And that's so beautiful. And you know what I mean? Again, it's
Yeah.
like, how do I want to do this?
Yep. The poking and prodding is it's funny because I'm definitely a poker and a prodder. Not to antagonize, but like I'll try to get the right answer, not right answer, but the answer that I'm trying to seek out of people. And one of the things that I recognized with that reading in my human design was that sometimes I use my truth as a sword. And just because I see what I would perceive as a truth doesn't mean I have to cut that person down with my truth, right? It's how do I now present what I feel is a truth to the person that I'm trying to get information from without offending them, without cutting them down, with somehow building them up, because maybe they don't recognize the truth, again, perceived truth that I recognize. So for
Yeah.
me to just walk around and just like cutting people down with what I feel is a truth is like, well, you're not adding any good context to this. You're basically just, you're creating separation, So it's like,
Yes.
oh, cool. Good to know. Good to know. Put that sword away.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that too, because it's like first layer of human design is like finding out about yourself, and then the immediate second, at least for somebody like me, is like, oh, and every single person out there has their own design. And then it's just like this
Yeah.
huge realization of like, holy shit, like
Uh-huh.
I I have the good and bad within me, and so did everybody else. And it's like it's like those things that you're wired for. It was funny. I was reading some deeper stuff the other day, and it's like your motivation in design. It's like there's an underlying motivation that we all have in our charts that it literally colors everything that you do.
Hmm.
And when you realize that, you're like, wow, okay, so all these things are going through multiple filters. And you're like, that's just who this person has been built to be.
Wow.
Like you just there's so it's love and acceptance for yourself, and then for truly humanity as a whole.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and we got. I think sometimes we have to realize and give ourselves the grace in order to find that and realize that in others and be like, oh, if I'm built this way, then others must have similar kind of things that they're working through. And okay, so
Mhm.
we're not all perfect. We're all working through some shit. Now we're going to give grace. We're going to hold space and meet people with where they're at instead of try to force them into where I want them to be.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
with astrology, what are some so again, like I understand like the month I'm born in,
Mhm.
but what are some basic understandings maybe you can pass along of the way that sometimes people talk about astrology? Because there's like the moon rising, there's like the houses people are in, things like that, and some of that can be very very in depth, and if it's
Yeah.
too much, then that's fine. But there are some basic terms that people do kind of like start to spout off that I try my hardest, but sometimes I'm just like, okay, now I'm thinking about my grocery list and I got to pick my kids up, and I've just forgotten what you've just told me. So I guess starting off with like it's just the month that we're born in. What does that sign mean for us?
Well, your sun sign, you think it is life force energy.
Okay.
It's it is what if the sun didn't exist, we wouldn't exist,
Hmm.
right? It's so essential. And again, I'm going to kind of flip flop because this is how I do. Like astrologers will be like, "You're not just your sun sign," and I'm like, back up on that.
Yeah.
When it comes to design, what's really cool is that you get into quantum mechanics.
Hmm.
Um, and there are these subatomic particles called neutrinos, and 70% of them that are basically they're everything. They're everything, they're everywhere. They're the smallest. I think at least at this point. I know they turned the CERN thing back on and there's new particles that have been discovered, but at this point, they were like the smallest thing kind of with mass,
Hmm.
almost too small to have it. And so 70% of them are coming from the sun at any given time. So where the sun was when you were born, and not just in Gemini, but in for you, gate 45, in line 4, and like all these again, multiple layers,
Hmm.
it imprints you with this very specific information. So this is where again it gets super, super interesting. You're like, yeah, sure, you're Gemini, but it gets so much more detailed.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
so it is, the sun is insanely important. You're like in design, it's the most important sort of placement in your chart. In astrology, you just think, oh, this is sometimes people refer to it as like the ego. It's it's who you think you are. It's the essence. It's the yang force.
Hmm. Okay.
The sun is yang.
Hmm.
It's that essence. Um, so people always, like are typically familiar with their sun sign, but a lot of times when they feel like it doesn't fit them, um, like the general description, say, of a Gemini or something, and you're like, okay, but yeah, but then again, it's a soup. It's like you have all kinds of other things going on in your chart that are going to speak to that. And again, this is why I think design gets way more specific. It's like, okay, we can get really, really detailed about what that Gemini sun is doing
Hmm.
for you.
Okay.
Um, But then in astrology, what people typically talk about is like the big three, your sun, your moon, your rising sign.
Okay.
Um, Moon sign in astrology, it really speaks a lot to the inner you, the more emotional you. In human design, it's considered a driving force. And what's fun in design, you get kind of like two of everything. You
Okay.
have a conscious and an unconscious side of your chart. So your moon, it when you realize, let's see, for you, your moon is about simplifying,
Mm,
simplifying and making things very easy to understand, easy to digest. You have a Taurus moon. I don't know
hmm.
if that rings a bell for you.
It does.
Um,
Oh, yes.
oh, but what's so fun, your unconscious moon, I have this gate as well. It's inner knowing and mystery and occult knowledge and just I'm like, this is where I have a nickname for her. She's Debbie downloads for me. It's like I'm having a download, and I'm like, just stuff, just it's like, boom, it's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very,
That's
very big understandings.
Yeah, that speaks to me a lot. So in my personal medicine work, I do a lot of not a lot of, I shouldn't say that, but I do psilocybin journeys, big macro dose journeys, and I remember one of the first ones that I did where I was able to let go, release. One of the things that I'm a control guy, so I was like, I love the fact that where I can just let go and not seem like I need control. And so one of the first times where I was able to let go, I took a big enough dose. I felt this. So I had this voice in my head telling me that I'm learning information in a way that is not typical that I learn information, and I don't know how the information will be there when I need it, but it just will. And
Yeah.
and that was such a weird but beautiful feeling that I had. And since then, and that was years ago, since then, there's times where like even when I'm having these podcast interviews, where all of a sudden like this thought or this stream of consciousness and this thing will come up when I'm working with Reiki clients or when I'm doing sound baths, I'll have these things come up and I'm like, I have no idea where that came from, but here you go. Here's that thing that just kind of channeled through me, I guess.
Oh my God, I get, can you tell? Like, I get so excited. This is again where design gets super fun to me because and I know we're going to touch on the gene keys later, but you've got these 64 gates, or
Mhm.
what's really it's the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. This is where the I Ching kind of pulls in.
Okay.
And I look at it like one day, I was like, oh my God, it's really like there's 64 colors in the Crayola box or the palette.
Mm.
Every single human is made up of some version of this. We're all kind of painting the same thing. It's like movies and TV shows. It's like it's always just a version of the same thing.
Mm.
It's like, how did this all come together? So when you share things with people like you and I both being Gate 61 people, it's super fun because I'm like, I know you know exactly what I'm talking like. And when you're like, yeah, and that feeling of like letting go, I'm like, yes, like cutting the cord, and you're just
Uh-huh.
out in space. Like I've had some, but one very specific mystical experience, and it's like, which I can't even talk about. Like I'll get two words out. It's so short, it's so nothing, but I'm like, I bawl because it was the most
Mm.
beautiful thing ever. And I'm like, I know that there was something with that gate having to do with it. So it's just really fun when again, you just kind of investigate. You're like, oh, that's why I'm that way. And that one in particular is part of the individual circuitry. So when you said, I don't know how I know it, I'm
Mm.
like, that right there. We don't, in individual stuff, you don't know how you know it. It's
Right.
just, it's on and then it's off. You can't force it. You just have to wait for them to come. I call it like shower thoughts.
Okay. Yeah.
You're in the middle of anything and you're like, I got it down.
Uh, yeah. Yeah.
Kind of like massive revelations.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
before I learned that, I always thought of it was as like a gnosis, this internal knowing of just like it just, I don't know where it comes from, I don't understand, I don't care, but there's just this knowing. And then I
Yes.
heard, a play. I don't know if it's a recent, but a recent play on words of the word gnosis, and it's the word knowing with a capital G. And so it's this knowing of self, of information, of source, of whatever it is that, again, we don't care to explain. We don't know why we know it. We just do, and that's fine with us. That's just that internal knowing that we have.
It is the claircognizance, it's like how it would be described in design,
Hmm.
because it is a type of intuition, but it's just, yeah, it's just there. You're like, don't ask me to explain myself, but I know deep in my bones
There
that
you
this
go.
is real.
Yeah, most definitely. Right.
Well, yeah, and so then rising sign. We'll talk about that real quick.
Okay.
Rising sign is interesting because um yes, the sun, like for you, in fact, let me just pop over here real quick. So, yes, the sun was in Gemini for you, but the rising sign is the sign that was on the horizon at the moment of your birth, and that changes every 2 hours. So, one of the many reasons that birth time is so important, right? And your rising sign actually determines the houses.
Okay.
So it always goes in a specific order from Aries all the way to Pisces, from 1 to 12. But the sign that was on the horizon in your case was Scorpio. So the way I describe it to people, I'm like, Scorpio comes in and it kicks Aries out of first place. And then everybody just shifts around the wheel like playing musical chairs.
Okay.
And now, and then further, I'm like, this is Scorpio renting Aries' house. So Scorpio defines, like you'd be in my book, I'm like, oh, this is somebody who you meet and you're gonna view them through like, oh, they're here for transformation and deep change and you know what I mean? That kind of
Mm.
stuff. Because that's what the first house is all about, me, myself, and I, and how I present and everything. And then each house, from there, it's like the slice of pie or pizza or whatever, like stages of your life. And I don't mean phases of your life. I mean areas of your life.
Okay.
There's me, there's home and family, there's relationships, there's career, there's like a house for everything that rules something. And so then again, it just gets interesting because you're like, oh wow, okay, in I'm like in your case, it's like Gemini is the eighth house. Oh my God, yes. So it's like, being somebody eight, now this is your sun, Gemini sun, renting from Scorpio. Well, what does Scorpio rule? Scorpio is intuition, it's mysticism, it's alchemy. It's
Mm.
I was turning trash into treasure. It's transmuting pain into beautiful things, right? Um, anything that's related to Scorpio is like these are people that are not afraid to go deep.
Mm.
They're not afraid to go places other people are afraid of,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
All that stuff that, oh no, it's too spooky, too scary for me. You're like, let me at it,
Yep. Dive
Yeah.
into that shit. Yep.
Yes,
That speaks
exactly.
very, very deeply.
Yeah. So just the big three and kind of understanding how the houses work is always interesting. Your rising sign, there's specific things in astrology that bring no definition to the human design chart, but it's still fun to look at it and see, because it's possible. You can see how it all kind of hooks up and blends together. But
Hmm.
yeah, really fun stuff.
Yeah, that Scorpio, it really resonates a lot. Like that, I think so much so that I need to be very careful of that sign. I dive way too deep sometimes, and I'm totally fine living in the ethereal world, like figuring shit out, like not no humanisticness involved. And
Totally.
my I have a spiritual mentor that the other day she sat me down and she's like, you need to stop meditating so much. It just you do it too much. You're starting to get too comfortable in that realm. You need to back off. You need to balance your physical with metaphysical. And I'm like, but I love meditating. I like that's like it's so. But I get it. I also understand because there are times when like my kids will get home from school and I'm like, okay, well I'm gonna go sit down and meditate and clear my mind for a minute. Well, okay, maybe I can do that before they get home or when they get home. It's like I should give that time to them, and not peel myself away from my peaceful practice because there's I like I said I can just hide in those areas. So I need to make sure that I'm physical and I'm back here in this world too.
Same. They're preaching to the choir, I'm like, what if I could just spend all my time in that place? And which is those bigger questions of like, okay, then what are we doing here? Trying to find out how this all works together.
Hmm. Yep. Right when I had that conversation with my mentor, I was just scrolling through TikTok and there was a guy in there and he was a bit extreme, but I love listening to extremists sometimes because it just gives me an understanding of where other opinions lie. But this gentleman was talking about how he's like we're humans. We're here in this human existence, kind of similar to what Ram Dass talked about in the 70s. We're here and we're humans. We should learn the curriculum. But he was saying, like we're supposed to be living a human existence right now. So why are we constantly sitting in metaphysical spaces? Like we are metaphysical. We know that. We came from metaphysical space to be humans. So get out there and be a human. Like we don't need to sit in our spirituality all the time. We don't need to sit and read and be intellectual all the time. We're doing and we're out here to be, right? And so And again, that was extremist. It was like, hey, you should never read, you should never meditate, you should just be out there and like seize the day. Like if we lived in Denver, Colorado, when it was nice all the time, I'm out there hiking, I'm doing all this shit. I'm not
Yeah.
inside being introspective. And so,
Yeah.
but again, there's a balance with all that stuff.
That's what I think it really is. And I'm like, I'm like, let's just come over here. Um, for those of us, I was born in 81 and you are
80.
80.
Hmm.
And so we're all in the same, me, you, Hannah, in that same nodal group, how
Hmm.
I said north nodes. And there's some major planets, some major players that were in Libra at that time. And I think when you have heavy, or even some Libra, I've got a lot. Is like the older I've gotten, the more that I've realized like it's like less about extremes.
Hmm.
It's more like, can we walk this middle ground like, and you could apply that literally to everything in life, and spirituality being one of them. It's like, yeah, okay, I know I'm a spiritual being, but I'm like clearly I'm here having to do this for some reason.
Yeah.
So, how can I find the balance? How can I make that okay,
Yeah.
and like be aware of it, but not let it get me down.
Yeah. And gosh, just quick tangent on that. I have times where I feel like I've done something, and I know this isn't right terminology, but I feel like I've done something wrong in my previous incarnation, like
Yeah.
when I was a spirit, not in a human
Yeah.
incarnation. And sometimes I feel like my human existence is almost a punishment of like you've done something to where you've messed up your spirituality. You've messed up your spirit. You've not learned the lesson that we've taught you, or that we thought you should learn, and that now like part of my I guess conditioning, part of my, I don't want to say punishment because I highly doubt anything's a punishment. My external learning, my extended learning, is to go
Yeah.
back and learn humanism again. And I'm like, I don't want to. Like, there's parts of me that I'm like stomping my feet and like kicking the ground. Like, I'm just so frustrated. I feel like a toddler. I'm like, God, I fucking did this before. I've done this. I know these lessons, but for some reason, I'm here to do it again. And I get so damn frustrated sometimes that I just don't want to do it.
I'm gonna go off on that tangent and tell you my whole thing is like, please don't let me have to do this again.
Yeah.
I'm here, I'm trying super hard. Like, please let this be the last round on the merry-go-round. Like,
Right.
I don't want to do this again. God. It's funny that you bring that up too, because kind of while we're still on the astrology subject, is that the nodes, the north and the south node are my obsession. And most people are like, oh, a little bit, I'm like, oh no, I'm crazy about them. I have been for years. Um, the South Node represents the karma that we come into this life with.
Hmm.
So very important, right? Or, if people don't entertain the idea of past lives or reincarnation, you're like, well, this is just natural talents, gifts, and skills that you show up with,
Hmm. Okay.
right? But it's the comfort zone. So I'm like, it's the comfy pair of sweatpants you put on for 2020. And you're like, I'm gonna Netflix and chill for the rest of my life. Not really knowing if there's anything out there. And so to me, I'm like, well, the North Node is the sister sign, right? There's 6 signs, but there's just 12 pairs. And they're a polarity, they're a duality. They are a relationship, and they're in complementary elements too on top of it. So the idea in my book, again, I'm always just very like try to take things from a very, I don't want to say positive because I don't know, just life affirming maybe,
Okay.
or like making sense of things, right?
Yeah.
Um, how I like to go about it, but I'm like, oh, it's not so much about burning off the karma of the South Node as using it. I'm like, it's a journey, and we're not taking the baggage. You only get to carry on. So we're taking the best pieces of your South Node. That's it. And really using them to propel you to the North Node. And the idea is if the South Node is our karma, the North Node's our dharma. It's our.
Ah.
I'm like, yeah, this is kind of why I'm obsessed with it, because if I want this to be my last go round, I'm like, bro, you gotta level up. You gotta
Yeah.
work that North Node. You gotta. I literally see everything in the chart as sort of my secret like MO. It's like everything to me in the chart, no matter what it is, else
Hmm.
it to be used in service of you doing your dharma.
Hmm.
And so when you do that, I'm like, and I'm just like, I give people ways of like, tools, oils, crystals, practices, things again to come through the physical body from that humanness,
Hmm.
helping you nurture and understand your North Node so that you can live it. And it's not so specific of like, Adam, you have to do X, Y, Z. It's more like, okay, start to embody this particular energy, see how it shows up in your life, and really lean into it. And it's gonna be good. And you already said something too about the truth when you were talking about the truth. And I'm like, yeah, you're somebody like at your highest expression is like it is about answers. It's like trying to find answers, trying to find the truth.
Yeah.
But again, understanding that there are as many truths in the world as there are people, and
Right. Yeah.
right,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
things. And then again, and that's the Leo North Node, and it's like coming from the Aquarius South Node of which I have an Aquarius South Node as well. It's like we're people that are like, I'm okay, I'm perfectly content being over here being objective. I don't really want to be in the mix. I don't want to be involved. I'm like, I always think like a scientist over here with my little clipboard, let me study everybody.
Hmm.
I don't want to get I don't want to get my hands dirty. When I was a kid, I used to love, I'd stay at my grandma's house and read Peanuts. And there was like a Linus quote, and I was like, man, this is the most Aquarius thing ever. He's like, I love mankind. It's people I can't stand. And I was like, I'm just a people observer. Like I just, yeah. And then you're like, but Leo is like, no, you gotta get in there. You gotta just get in there and have fun for the sake of it. I I laugh too, like coming from this such as analytical place and willing to like go deep in all this stuff. And you're like, actually, the North Node in Leo's prescription is just to like have fun and be childlike and all these things. I'm
Yeah.
like, you're shaking your head. I'm like, it's the stuff that's going to be very difficult for an Aquarius South Node,
Yeah.
and you're like, but this is our biggest medicine, is just to try to be that. All the books that are on the North Node that I have and love, they're always like, Leo North Nodes are the ones that if anybody knew this stuff, they would be jealous of that one, because it's not doesn't have to be hard, and
Yeah.
we make it hard. Yeah.
I make it so damn hard.
Oh,
For me to play and to release and let go, like it's so hard for me. And when you said the earlier about like basically like knowing the rules, like that's something like the information. I'm so information based
yes.
that even the amount of work that I've been doing in my spiritual path, there's like one string holding me back from in my understanding there's one string holding me back from me just like moving forth into this realm that I've been working towards in this, whether it's a consciousness understanding, a ethereal understanding, whatever it is. But there's it's that fact-based knowledge that somehow I need to feel comfortable about stepping forth. And I know that's one of my lessons, is that not everything has to be factual and not everything has to be provable. There's a trust and there's a faith, and that's when the magic really is going to happen for me, is when I can release that desire of the knowing of my own personal knowing, and just trust fall into the faith. Trust
Yeah.
fall, knowing that some beautiful ethereal spirit's going to catch me before my head smashes on the ground and be like, "Told you, you'd be
Yeah.
fine."
I need you're gonna be good. It's quite funny. I have to tell you what your North Node, because it's different than what me and Hannah, like the gate that it's in. Yours is in gate 4, and in the I Ching, gate 4 is known as youthful folly. And I find that hilarious, because I'm like, yeah, and it's about the whole like, I need an answer, need an answer, need an answer. And you're like, the youthful folly is thinking that there is one, right? Or that it's so specific and I'm going to get an answer. It's going to be the universal truth. That you're like, no, that's it is only gate 4 out of 64. You're like, girl, there's so much more to come after this.
God, that resonates so much. And that, no matter how much work I've been doing, it's that whisper, sometimes a scream, is always there. And it's that thing that I constantly have to battle, and it's knowing that it's there is kind of comforting, because at least now I know what the voice is, and I know it's really ego based too, and it's, for me, my ego drove the bus for a very long time, 30 plus years, so my ego is very used to being in control and thinking that it's right. And so the more that my spirituality starts to move in, and it's quieter than my ego, it doesn't scream and kick and, yell. My ego, my consciousness is very quiet and soft. And sometimes my ego can whisper like my consciousness and pretend that it is and can fool me. But, but knowing how strong my ego is, and actually a friend of mine gave me advice a while back. He's a clinical therapist, and he said, if you name your ego, then it's easier for you to give direction to it. Be like, okay, I named mine Corporate Adam. Okay, Corporate Adam, go sit over there in the corner, direct a P&L, right? Write your budget. That's cool because this business plan will need a budget too, but it doesn't always have to be about the business, right? There's an etherealness and esotericness about this too. So if you feel comfortable writing your budget, go over in the corner, write your budget. I'm going to sit over here and we're going to do something different. We're going to make oh gosh, what are they called? I do them every year. I can't remember the name of it now. Basically, like a flow chart for picture board for our goals for the year, right?
Yeah.
So there's like this ethereal way of doing things that I can focus on, but I can also just like give my corporate Adam, give my ego a task to let that person and let that being be appeased while the other parts of me are able to explore themselves as well. Vision board. That's the word I was looking for. Vision board.
I was always thinking, and I was like, okay. Well, what I also love too, when I'm talking about this for instance, the skate four and oh my gosh, needing an answer, you're like, when you dissect the chart, there's something called circuitry. And there's individual, how I said this inner knowing. And it's like, well, that's one thing. There's tribal, that's about the group. There's collective, and there's collective sensing, which is the yin feminine, and there's collective logic. And this four comes from the collective logic side. It's like when you realize that this is a trait that you have, and I always say it's like, or it's been switched on in you. I don't have this gate. Like I don't relate to this energy at all. And it's hilarious because it's like, but I could say it to you and you do understand.
Yeah.
Is that it's collective logic. It's like, well, what does that circuitry do? It's like it's looking for repeatable patterns. It's looking for a head to perfect things, to basically get an answer, right? That's provable. It's like it truly collective logic is like math. It's like 2 + 2 is 4 anywhere in the world.
Always,
right?
yep.
And it's something for collective for all of us to understand. So you're like, oh wow, now I have another layer to look at this and be like, why would I judge corporate Adam? Corporate Adam is just kind of doing his thing that he's meant to, and that's just a piece of you that's again been switched on there. So it's fun when you can kind of like, oh, again, like take the judgment away from that. And it's not like, oh my God, my corporate Adam ego is so evil or anything, it's like, no, that is just one of the many pieces that make me up. And it's just trying to do its job. Don't want to take it too seriously, but I'm going to let it be.
Right. Yep. I had a psilocybin experience a number of years back where I tried to my goal was to remove my ego, and this is when I didn't realize that there was a balance, and I was like, hey, ego, we're done, get out, you've served your purpose. And in the throes of my experience, I'm at a point now where I'm like, okay, I'm going to break out the spiritual crowbar. You're out of here, ego. Get the F away from me. And he wouldn't leave. And was pleading his case and all this stuff. And finally, one of the messages that I constantly receive when I'm in these journeys is, show love to what you're afraid of. What scares you needs love. And that's the balance that we have. And so instead of, I had that moment of like, get the F away from me. And then all of a sudden it switched and I'm like, I love you. I love you so much for all that you've done for, you helped me raise a family. You helped me find a house. You helped me, get to this point in life, good, bad, or indifferent, and thank you for all of that. I just don't need you to run the show all the time. And that was, it needed to know that I wasn't abandoning it because it's such a strong part of me. And even though that I don't want it to be the main part of me anymore, it still needs a place. And so, in my background is restaurants. And so as much as a guest that has cold food just wants to feel that they've been heard, they don't necessarily want their meal for free. They just want to know that like, hey, this was wrong. This was my experience. I want to just tell you about that. And that was a similar kind of thing that I have with my ego. It's like, there's nothing wrong with my ego. It's just got a very strong voice and it really wants to be heard. So now I just need to find a place where I can hear it, but not always act on it.
Totally. Yeah.
Beautiful stuff.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Okay, so we have the big three that we talked about for astrology. Do you think we can transition into gene keys?
Sure.
Okay. So how did and you know the okay, so the little research I've done on gene keys, the number 64 immediately resonated because I know a little bit about the I Ching. I know how
Mhm.
to do readings. I still need the book and things like that. But so the I Ching I know has 64 the hexagrams.
Yes.
And so that was the first thing I was like, oh my God, that's I see a link there.
There you go.
So yeah, with so how did gene keys kind of play into with what you're doing?
So the gene keys came about as like human design itself was, downloaded, channeled, like kind of however you want to describe it. And then one of the main teachers of it, who was that person's right hand guy. So human design, Ra Uru, um, Richard Rudd was one of his teachers, right? That he taught to and then taught. He then kind of went on to do his own thing, and so that's where the gene keys came from.
Hmm.
He had his own, experience and really brought that to light. And it's so cool because so the gene keys focuses on the 64 gates, or they're called keys. It's the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. It's really beautiful. It's like human design is so uh it's a system. It's like it's a system, and it makes sense. Air
Yeah.
quotes, right? And then but it's not super flowery and all of this stuff, and that's where the gene keys I feel like diverts. It's like it really gets into the meat of every single one of these gates. And I always say high and low expression, but in the gene keys, there's always the shadow, the gift, and the city, like the truly the highest expression of these things. And so it is a different system. It has its own thing going on, but it's so much fun to really kind of dive into each one of those in depth through the system. And again, I blend all of it together. I'm like, it is astrology, but it's human design, but it's the gene keys, it's all the things. And then I have a yoga background. I did Kundalini training.
Mm.
And so, oh my God, and then this finger, and then this, okay, we're gonna bring this crystal in and this oil. It's like I'm a synthesizer.
Yeah.
So that's how I see it. So it does have its own system where you're looking at specific placements in the chart, like, oh, okay, Adam, like let's look at your prosperity, things or what have you. But it's still something that you're going to find in your astrology chart and your human design chart.
Okay.
It just gets deep.
All right. And so, is there like a balance between the gene keys that we have, or is it like, we lean more heavily on some than others, or, how does that kind of manifest with us?
So there is something in our human design charts called your incarnation cross. And then it's like there's activation sequence and gene keys. And a lot of these things are sort of one and the same. They just have different names
Mm.
for the placements. Um, So again, your sun and earth from both sides of your chart in human design are what's really like the big pillars in the gene key. So it's fun. So you could take your gate 45 and go look up gene key 45, and you're going to be like, "Oh, okay,
Ah,
this is really fascinating." It's I said there's the shadow of everything is more the ego side of stuff, and it is hilarious. It's like I said, here's this beautiful flowery like super spiritual book, and I'm like, you'll pick it up and be like, fuck this. Well, I'm gonna burn it, because it calls you out so hard. Like
yeah.
if you see the things that you do and especially in that very unconscious kind of place that we've all been at
Hmm.
one time or another, it just shows you to yourself immediately.
We all love that mirror.
Good. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it's good. Like I said, when you see it, I mean, like I'm a Pisces sun. My sun is in gate 36. It's in the I Ching, it's the darkening of the light. And it's like this is a marker in people's charts. When I see it, I'm like, oh, we have a history of depression, or what's, like that you just the name of that. You can it's crisis.
mm,
It's a mental crisis, is all these things. And stuff that I'm like, oh yeah, victim mentality and different things. You're like, yep, yep, that's me in my low expression.
wow.
But what is beautiful about it, it's like humanity, its highest expression is compassion. It's Christ consciousness.
Right.
It's this ability to just like feel for everybody. You're like, and that's me too.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And one do I want who do I want to play?
Yeah. S-
Not the low expression.
Right. Yeah. We don't want to live in those shadows. So
No.
with the shadows and the gifts, do all 64 of the gene keys have that kind of archetypal where you can play into one or the other side of it if you're deficient or you're excessive in?
Yes, exactly.
Interesting.
Every single one of them. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the archetypes have just, I've just been able to put some time into archetypes, and within the past probably 5 years, and read King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, great book. Listened to a lot of the stuff from like Jordan Peterson that he talks about archetypes and things like that, and that information, as soon as it landed with me, it resonated so deeply because I love stories. I think most of us do love stories, but one of the things that was put in front of me as to a way to look at my personal constitution outside of human design, things like that, is based off the Toltec shamanistic ways, and they have four things they look at: your ability to sing, dance, tell stories, and sit in silence or meditation. And
Mhm.
so, looking at your personal constitution in those four things, if one is deficient, then that's where you can put work into. And for me, it's dancing. Like I don't mind singing in front of people. I'm not the most comfortable, but I can do it. Chanting, things like that. I love telling stories. I love meditating. But dancing in front of people is one of those things I'm just like, I don't feel comfortable because I don't know what I'm doing. And again, like playing into my constitution, like I like to know the ground rules so I know where to operate within. And ecstatic dance for me is like, you can do anything. You could sit there in lotus pose. You can get up and flail all of your limbs. You can
Yeah.
do the duck walk, right? You can do anything you want in ecstatic dance. And to me, that's too much. And I'm like, no, I need a thing I can do, you know?
Yeah.
So, so finding that crossover between gene keys and archetypes, that resonates with me.
Yeah, and I think too what you're just describing as well, sometimes it's always like, oh, but then I can put work into that. And you're like, or should I just play to my strengths? I'm like, that's really what design and all that does. It's like, oh no, I should actually just play to my natural strengths and be
Yeah,
like, if you're not a dancer, I am a dancer, but I'm like, if you're like, I'm not a dancer, but you know what? I am awesome at meditating all, like you have things. It's like, why are we looking at what's deficient, air quotes,
right.
versus why don't I just lean all the way in, turn the volume all the way up on what I am amazing at, because somebody else is supposed to be that person. They
Right.
are the and that's again, sorry, I'm like, it always comes back to design, because you're like, well, not a single one of us have everything activated in our chart, and that's sort of the point.
Hmm.
Is that I'm not good at that, how you said earlier. Start a project, don't finish it, but I find the person to do that. You're like, uh-huh, because it's not for you. You're supposed to be that person, and that person is somebody that can carry it all the way through,
Yeah.
right? So it's like we are a human tapestry. We have every single one of us has something to contribute, and not a single one of us is 100%. I don't need anybody. I'm complete the way that I am,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So since this, I'm so like evangelical about it. I'm like, no, there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
Nothing. You're not in anything. You just that's the lens you're seeing it through.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that's, again, part of my work is that when I find something that is what we consider deficient, my goal is to put work into it. Okay, cool. Well, how do I raise that up instead of, like you said, play to your strengths? Like, how do I maybe
Yeah.
find the right person that strength is in them naturally, and I can just play to my strength, which is finding right people that do the right thing.
Like,
Ah,
it's complimentary. It's beautiful,
yes.
and I think too that again, kind of going back to when I had that light bulb, but I was like, everybody's got a design. You're like, oh, okay, well, we complement each other. I don't have to be that because you're that. And
Right.
you don't have to be what I am because I'm filling that role.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And we all get there together.
Yeah. I loosely had a talk with my kid about this the other day. She's my oldest kid just graduated from high school. My youngest kid's 13. And I was talking to her about the way the school system's set up and how, we're set up to be the best at every subject, right? That's one of the
Mhm.
goals right now, valedictorians or honor rolls and blah, blah, blah. And so, but, how are we supposed to be the best at math, science, social studies, English, like all these things all at the same time? We're not playing into our strengths, so it's okay, like if you're really really good at science and math but you just don't really understand English that well, right, or language arts or whatever that is, right? We can't be the best at all things, but part of our public school system is kind of encouraging that mentality of you should be the best at all of the things. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of dangerous for our kids because there's already so much pressure on these damn kids, having first of all, both of my kids are girls, and so there's already that pressure of being a woman in this world, the standards that they're expected to hold up to, all these things that I didn't really understand, and I still barely understand as a white male.
Yeah.
I'm trying my best to hold that space for them, but on top of all these unwritten expectations, now we have this expectation of being the best in school. And if you're not the best, then you're not going to get into a good college, and you want to get a good job. And thankfully, I think we're moving away from those narratives as we start to awaken ourselves to the understanding that there aren't physical check boxes that we need to check in the Western society of like get married and have kids and go to college and do the fucking career and blah 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 blah, right? We're finally getting away from that narrative, but there still are that remnants of that narrative that's there, that still, that there are those expectations that put on our kids.
Oh, big time. And that's, again, human design, it's like it's actually meant for children. We're not
Mm,
supposed to be in our 40s finding this out. The idea is that you're raising your children according to this wisdom.
mm,
What's so cool, then you're like, wow, okay, if we're playing from strengths from the get-go and not looking at it like I'm deficient in math, I'm like, I'm just, well, you know what? That's not how I'm created.
yeah.
And that's fine. Um, is huge. If you can prevent the conditioning from happening, that's amazing. And the whole point of that too is that in in design there is this prophecy around the year 2027, which is fast approaching, right?
Mm,
It's like, okay, we all need to get this information as soon as possible. And the reason, kind of the to zoom out, we go through periods in astrology. They're always like, oh, the age of Pisces, the age of Aquarius, and so on and so forth. And it's like those are like thousands of years, and nobody's ever really sure of what's going on there.
mm-hmm.
But in human design, they last a couple hundred years. We're in what's called the cross of planning. So how I mentioned incarnation cross, well, we also have time periods that are under these things as well. So somebody can be born with the cross of planning, but we as humanity are in the cross of planning.
Mm,
The tribal energy, meaning this is about groups, it's about structure, it's about having healthcare and schools and everything you're just, like what we're talking about, and everything we're approaching, we're in those last years, and like, yoga, like Kali Yuga. It's
mm,
like,
right.
oh, we're in the breakdown.
Yeah.
The breakdown before the breakthrough, and we're actually living, we're the people here living to witness this, everything that's happened, especially in these last couple of years. We don't even need to name it, it's
Oh,
like
jeez. Yeah.
oh, like hot mess express. You're like, but there's a reason for it, is because this time period is coming to an end, and those structures are breaking down. Healthcare doesn't work the way that we hoped. Putting kids through school systems in the way like we are doesn't work because of all these things that we know.
Mm-hmm.
So the point is that 2027, we're going to be moving into the cross of the sleeping phoenix. So we're going from a tribal time period about the group. You can't survive if you're not in a group, and like you have to have your people, to a time of the individual.
Oh.
So what I was saying about individual circuitry, right? The knowing and stuff. So the idea is that we need everybody, and especially children, to know that they are their own authority, that they're the boss of themselves, that nobody outside of them can really tell them who they are and what they're doing. My son is a manifester, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
the generator. It's like they have different ways of being, they have different authorities. I raise and I'm educating them in all of this stuff. He's too little to be aware, she understands it. Because I'm like, okay, like this is how you're going to intuit and sense things. And it's going to, again, like you've had your design, this stuff, you're like, oh yeah, this rings true. It's like, so for everybody, when you realize like this is how I'm wired and how I'm made up, I should look to no one outside of myself to influence me, to give me direction, any of those things. All of a sudden you're like, we are all our own authorities, and that's the point.
Mm,
You're going to need that to survive,
yeah.
in these the coming years.
Yeah. That's really interesting. There's a Dr. Zach Bush that I follow, and I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but
Heard of them.
yeah, fantastic guy. And he's talking about there's an indigenous prophecy that between the age of 2017 and 2027, it's funny you mentioned 2027,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
that within that decade time span, the genes that allow us to process grief and fear will be basically bred out of us, right? So we're going to lose those abilities to process grief and fear, which means we're not going to hold on to grief and fear like we currently do. And so think about humanity that doesn't have grief and doesn't have fear anymore. Think
Right.
about how beautiful that can be when we're not so afraid to try something different, or we're so afraid to lose somebody that we're not going to do this one thing. And so like
Mm.
having grief and fear, two of the biggest emotions that we have such a hard time dealing with as humans, is thought to be being bred out of our genes, so we're not able to process those anymore.
That's so interesting. I'm gonna have to look into that because that's part of the 2027 thing is it's considered the solar plexus mutation.
Mm,
And that we're all going to there's things that are kind of like in the design chart that are going to be going away, new things coming, children that are going to be coming to this plane that are not the same as us,
yeah.
you know? And there's going to be this understanding that solar plexus is like um the emotional solar plexus. So it's in design there's nine energy centers, not just the seven chakras, but is that's our place where we're going to all of a sudden realize it's spirit consciousness. We are one,
Mm,
right? We don't,
yes.
and it, like the communication will change, and so what you're saying about the things being bred out, I'm like, yeah, exactly. Like this is things are going to change, and the idea of people hear change are like, oh God, and you're like, no, this is positive. Like we have to,
Yeah.
we've got to change.
Right.
Like this is a critical point.
Right. I think that's one of the reasons why things are so kind of tumultuous seeming right now, is that I think we're in the midst of change. Change
Yeah.
is one of the hardest things we'll ever do in life, and change sucks. Like the process of change is tough, it's awkward, it takes us out of our rituals, all the patterns we've created, and that's what our brain loves because it saves energy when we can just know that, like you said, 2 + 2 = 4. But if one day 2 + 2 = 5 and you're like, what? No, this whole time? No, that's not right. So
Yeah.
there is this like uncertainty almost of like, we just want things to stay the same, but there's so much growth that needs to happen. And so we're in the midst of that growth. We're in the midst of that change. And that's one of the theories of why things feel so just strange right now, you know?
Yes.
And,
Yes.
the everyone here comment you made, I love that. There was another gentleman I was listening to a while back, and he was saying, like, people are talking about overpopulation, things, that we don't have enough resources in the world, blah, blah, blah. But from a spiritual way of looking at it, everybody wants to be here right now. There's so many souls that want to be here because this is the time. This is, like you said, the end of the Kali Yuga, which is the age of ignorance. We're about
Yeah.
to move over back into that understanding age. And so all the spirits in the universe want to be here and want to be a part of that change and want to help push that change forward. And that's one of the reasons I think there's so many bright young children being born and bred into this world now. Like there is an awareness and a consciousness in these children that I look at and I'm like, you have shit way more figured out than I ever thought I would at your age. And even at this age I'm at now.
Oh
I talk
yeah.
to kids and I'm like, I don't know where that came from, but I'm going to like record you saying that because that's one of the most profound things I've ever heard. And
Oh,
I'm so excited about this generation of children and young adults that are coming through with all these beautiful and amazing ideas.
well, it's fascinating too to look at stuff. I mean, my grandma was older, like an older grandma, and she lived through the Great Depression.
Mm,
And I'm like, dude, like I would hear these stories and stuff, and I'm like, the things that she was like that she literally lived through versus like my big complaints at this day and age, right? In this time where you're like, I was telling my daughter something about, like, oh, and just the other day they had an outhouse, and I'm like, can you imagine like having to be up in the middle of the night, no phone, you don't have a light, you got to go out and do your business outside, like what? And I'm like,
uh-huh.
we're so just we're just so soft. We have no idea what it's like to really like, especially in the Western world, like struggle and all of that. And I think that's wild,
Yeah.
that you're like, so I feel like if I don't have to worry about those things, it's like I have the privilege of so many things in this world. And clearly it's like you said, we're here for a reason. We've chosen to come here. I'm like, then I feel like it's my duty, my
Hmm.
obligation, again, having this information to love and accept myself, and then hopefully raise even children that get to jump. they get to jump the queue in that sense of like they don't have to go through all of this. It's like we can do this, right sooner because my grandma wasn't getting to think like, oh, am I going to live out my spiritual purpose? And I'm like, it's what I spend my days thinking about,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's different worlds. And so those of us that are in that position to get to do that or be that or really like kind of think, I want to live my dharma, I'm like, girl, like what's standing in your way?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
we need to help other people with it because we're at a place that this is really important. Like if we've burned off a lot of those other things, like we're not concerned with survival typically now,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like that's not my everyday concern. So now, what do you do with that? What do you do with that gift and that privilege?
Right. That's, I think one of the most beautiful things about our healing journey when we have the ability to find it, because a lot of us, we don't have the time, the money, it is healing is a
Yeah.
commodity at times,
Totally.
and so, but when we do find our healing journey, we're able to lean into it, we're doing that healing for 7 generations in the past and 7 generations forward. Like you were saying, your grandmother, there's probably trauma she experienced that you just are aghast at that she would be like, well, that was just a Wednesday. That
Yes.
doesn't even resonate as trauma within her brain, but it was a traumatic experience, living off of nothing, not knowing when your next meal was going to come, not knowing if you're going to get eaten by a coyote going to take a shit in the middle of the night, like all these things of like, again, just, oh, that's just a Saturday for us. And so like when you finally get to the point of where you start your healing, all the generations that came before you can take a big breath of fresh air because they now can experience the healing through you, which they never even realized they had the time to, or even the ability or the right to heal from. Like your grandmother being a woman that grew up through the Great Depression, had to fight for rights to vote, had to fight. Like I just had a conversation with my mom the other day. She's just now 70, and she told me that the very first credit card she had to get my dad to co-sign on that, and that was in the fucking 80s. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
what the hell is that? My mom had a job, she had like credit, she had all the things, but because she was a woman, my dad had to co-sign for a goddamn credit card. And that was like 30 years ago. Like we're not that far away from like
Yeah.
all of this generational trauma that has just been stacked and stacked against us.
Totally. And again, I do feel like there's something about maybe our age group and like now younger where it's like we're old enough to be aware of all of those
Hmm.
things and kind of, like lived through some of that and you're like, yeah, isn't this just like absolutely batshit crazy that like we've seen it. As you're saying that though, I like it was so interesting. There was a story my grandma would tell
Hmm.
and, and it always stuck with me. It was like, she loved to write, just write things and she was really little number of sisters, I mean, again, like family, there's no birth control.
Right, exactly.
And they didn't have any money and it's like beans for dinner every night if you had food, and taking in other people's washing to like make, God knows a nickel or something.
Hmm.
And she had gotten it was like this big deal. I know it was like winter time, riding like the horse and like it was the carriage type of thing. And she got in a pad, like a pad of paper and a pencil. This was her big, she, like, wow, big
Yeah.
deal. You got this. And something like the horse threw them and so she lost her stuff in this, like lost the pencil.
Hmm.
Fucking pencil, right?
That's crazy.
A pencil. And
Yeah.
this was a big trauma, because it's like they didn't have money in the first place. They didn't have money to replace it. And you're
Yeah.
like, isn't that just like it makes my brain want to explode. I'm like,
Yeah.
and you're just like, whatever, about a writing utensil. It's like not a big deal. I'm like, what we think is important to like, what other anyway.
No,
So
totally. Like just that right now. Like I was in restaurants for so many years. Like I have an entire drawer full of pens and pencils that I've lifted from the 30 years I worked in restaurants. So like that story to me is like, holy shit. Like what would that be for me now? What is the thing that I would lose now? Like I always make the joke about like how, this is the blinking VCR clock of our generation. Like you used to go to your grandparents' house and the VCR clock's always
yeah,
blinking. You're like, why don't you just set that fucker?
yeah,
Because it's so damn hard and it's difficult. There's all the buttons to push and like there's so much stuff now that is the blinking clock of our VCR of our generation. But like, what would be the pencil that was lost?
Yeah.
that this thing that, throws us into a loop of like despair, but is now just like, oh, I'm just going to go to this drawer and grab another pen and just
Yeah,
be
because
okay
we've
with
got
that.
hundreds of them.
Right.
Like,
Oh,
right?
so
Yeah.
interesting.
So wild.
Well, so okay, so now I think we've laid some groundwork, and we've been tiptoeing around human design. But so now, utilizing all this information, so human design, we have like the I Ching, we have astrology, we have quantum mechanics. You talked about gene keys. So there's a lot of this stuff that kind of gets pushed together into what we now have as our human design chart.
Yeah.
So you utilize that quite a bit just through our conversation. So when you have clients that sit in front of you, like how does this kind of work into what you offer to your clients?
So for the last couple years, and it was like quarantine was the thing that kicked it all off because it's like, you study, study, study all these things. I'm like so deep into all of it, but never really doing anything with it, right?
Hmm.
And quarantine happened somehow. Somebody asked me to do their chart, and that just opened the floodgates. And I was like, oh my God, okay. So really do go through and touch, I would say, touch on a little high level astrology, really introduce the nodes to people. I deep dive into human design, and at the end I give them what I call my energetic prescription, all the things that are going to really help support them. So that's how I work with people, or have been working with people, although that is changing. I'm actually gonna quiet down on the one-on-ones and really focus on teaching. Again, this isn't stuff that's in my chart. That's like, okay, Mikaela, more people need this information. Like you said, healing, wellness, all of that is a commodity. And I'm like, I'm lucky enough to be in a privileged position in my life at my age and things where is like, is that necessary? Or can you just help people for the sake of helping?
Hmm.
Because again, everything comes back to like what's in your own chart. What are you programmed to kind of like give? um my own chart is about self-love
Hmm.
and the struggle, right? It's not like easy street, like the struggle to get there. And then I know I mentioned like motivation. I'm an innocence motivation. It's like I have no agenda. I mean, you just see like everything that's wrong, you're like, but it doesn't have to be that way,
Yeah.
right? Like we could do better. We could help people. So it's, I mean, you've caught me in an interesting time where I'm like, yeah, I just want to like really really help other people get introduced to those things that again alleviate the suffering.
Hmm.
Like I laugh because I'm like I say it, I'm like people speak their designs all the time and you're like that's exactly it. I'm somebody who's here to kind of understand, like I said, the emotional crisis and the tough stuff, but then know that there's a way out of it. And then like I said, like make this living on this earth plane easier for people.
Right.
So it's interesting coming from like a very medical background, from my aesthetics background, is seeing all the ways in the chart because I'm teaching at like I don't have an interest in being like, well, I'm going to teach you how to read the chart the way I do. I'm like, that's a whole like my profile at 4-1 is literally cut out to do this stuff.
Yeah.
Not everybody is, right? You're like, I get it, but I don't get it. Um, I'm meant for that, but at the end of the day, the world doesn't need more human design readers. We need to understand how to use this for healing.
Hmm.
And we need to, and it's like, to me, it's a quantum leap. It's like, you find out one thing in your chart and all of a sudden you're like, and the self-judgment goes away. And oh my goodness. And you get, like I said, you just get to quantum leap ahead
Hmm.
and it changes your perspective and it changes your world. And so that's more what I want to teach people. And coming from the aesthetics world, I'm like everybody in that, they're healers, whether they want to kind of own that title or not. And typically, especially in medical, it's like, no, no, no. And I'm like, but you are.
Yeah.
And so I just see it in this very big picture kind of way of like you put certain tools and modalities into people's hands that also touch a lot of people, and now everything explodes and it just has this beautiful mushroom effect. So that is kind of my big MO right now is like people come, they lay down on the table, like they're the pseudo therapist. It's like, well, why don't I actually give these people something to help and
Hmm.
something to help them work with people.
Yeah. And you'd mentioned something earlier about teaching human design to kids. And
Yeah.
that triggered something in me. And one of the things that I've talked to a few guests about is how we know so much about the body now, like the somatic responses, parasympathetic nervous system. How to up and down regulate our bodies and our energetics based off breath work, right? For example, but we're still having to have specialized classes in breath work. We're still having to find this information with breath work. It's not just readily taught in, well, I guess it's starting to in schools, but it's still not on a regular curriculum. But, we this is with us all the time, like this body, this brain, this consciousness, this all this stuff. But we have to try and find different ways to learn how to work with this thing. And so like when you said teaching human design at a young age, like god damn, I would imagine like the generations of kids that just grow up knowing exactly what their energetic boundaries are, what they're good at, what they're okay with being quote unquote bad at. Knowing that if you're whatever you think bad at something over here, that Jimmy over here is going to be great at that. So you and Jimmy just become homies, and then you got some shit figured out, right? And so
Exactly.
that creates that inner workings of people working, the kids working together, but also layering on top of that, like, okay, so now you know your constitution, you know what you're good at energetically, what you need to work on or whatever, but also here's how to breathe, right? Here's, if you get anxious, here's box breath and it'll bring you back into your constitution. If you need to down regulate your system, here, inhale for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 8. You'll start to lower you start to lower your energies. But again, we have to search this stuff out. So like you having that, just that statement right there just adds to the curriculum that I have going in my head for these kids that we haven't even figured out yet.
Yeah, it's so interesting. All of that. I mean, my kids being like in grade school and yeah, it's like getting those things into those spaces so that we have happier, healthier kids. I'm sorry. I'm like, that's Whitney Houston. They're our future,
Right?
like
Yeah.
there's no truer statement. And we really need to tend to that. We really need to address that for them because, we all have been through it. We know it doesn't work.
Right.
The way that things were going along, it does not work. Again, so like figuring out who you are on that individual level and being your own authority is going to be the game changer for everyone.
Yeah, most
Mm.
definitely. So with
Yeah.
your human design, so you're is how do you combine so being an auric esthetician and energetics, and like how do you combine all of that together with human design for the clients?
Yeah. So, like I said, in the last couple of years, my work really shifted where I mainly focus on, I call them sessions so
Mm,
they don't like scare people, readings and stuff. And so that's what I do. But we talked about Hannah earlier with the Anamkara Healing Center now being here in Spokane, and I'm involved and going to be more heavily involved in the, kind of actually once I get back from my trip,
yeah.
being down there at the studio, just to kind of be on hand and help and stuff. And the teaching thing is kind of where I don't know, like here's the shower thoughts where it's like the big picture starts to come together of like years where you're like things you get little bits and pieces at a time and all of a sudden there's more of a fully formed picture to me. Um, so coming from that background, seeing how all the pieces come together, like I said, my North Node is about synthesizing information and making it all make sense. Um, is seeing how to use this for healing.
Mm,
So I would look at your chart, say, like I'm a Reiki master as well, and um, looking at your chart and being like, having like that therapeutic dialogue, not being a reading anymore, how I've been doing these things, but really looking at it, be like, oh gosh, okay, for Adam, like, all right, you have a totally open G center, and these might be the things that you would struggle with, and being able to talk about it, or you coming in more almost, again, I'm coming from a medical background,
mm,
but you coming in with your chief complaint. And
mm,
I'm like, okay, let's look at your chart. And then I see things in there and I'm like, well, you're how I said people speak their designs. And I'm like, well, this is it right here. We can see we're right in on it. And then we have ways of, energetically treating that. So, Reiki being one of those things, or, oh, you know what, this essential oil would be amazing for this, or this particular breathwork practice, or
mm,
what, like, really, I was telling Hannah, I was like, I really see myself as like a GP, it's like, let me kind of diagnose you and like, well, then we'll send you on to like the specialist. And then you can take that information to be like, all right, in fact, I'm looking at your chart right now. There's a fear of the future in your chart. There's a fear of failure in your chart. And you're like, well, those are two low expressions,
mm,
right? Or
mm,
like attunement to success and insane intuition. right?
Yeah.
The two sides of those coins. And I'm like, but if you were like somebody who's like, yes, I just have this like major fear of the future. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, now you have that information. Go take that to your spiritual mentor. Go take that to your Reiki practitioner, whoever, you know what I mean? Whoever you're working with,
Yeah.
and actually like address, I don't even want to call it a problem, but address it, kind of know that there's a high and a low expression, and then actually do something with it.
Yeah. I
That's my big.
I'm that's fantastic, and I think, that adds a layer to the personal understanding of you as a human, and not just always looking for somebody else to tell you what's wrong with you, how do I fix it? You're giving that power to the human being. And as kind of, maybe in the beginning that might be a little fearful for people, because a lot of us might be conditioned to just tell me what I need to do. I'm going to go fix it, but I need
Yeah,
you to tell me. When
yeah,
we can figure that out and start to hand the book, the owner's manual to the human across from me and be like, hey, we're going to dissect this together, but also here you go. Like, this is good, bad, and indifferent, however you want to interpret it. But this is how you're put together. And I think, if that's that holistic way of approaching the human being as a whole,
exactly.
oh my God, I love that.
Exactly. And I love that you said that too, because I think that's also why I've gotten to this point where I'm like, no, I want to shift into teaching. And I have like, what I'm developing as my own modality. And
Hmm.
that's what I do with, in Hannah's space and stuff. It's like I told her, I'm like, let it be. I want it to be my mad scientist lab. Like, I should be in there. You just give me people. I want to, kind of energetically see what, how this works. But kind of going back and then tying it to aesthetics, like to beauty, which is hilarious because that is my background, is like everybody's so hung up on the external or the physical vehicle of like what's wrong with them. And you're like, bitch, you have so many amazing qualities, so many just cool ass things about you that are like that it has nothing to do with your physical body.
Right.
Zero. And you're just you're like an energetic supermodel, and it's like those are the things like, but everybody's so hard on themselves. Like, how can we kind of do it holistically? That's why I really see it as like a whole holistic practice,
Yeah.
you know?
Wow. So we're actually, in my vision of having this conversation with you, and the way that you've been, you're peppering in your beautiful information and all this stuff, it seems like to me that we're witnessing your actualization moment, where
Yeah.
all of that cool, weird shit that you love
Yeah.
about life, the human design, all the cool metaphysical and physical things, and just now it's culminating together into this beautiful, like you said, this modality that you're kind of figuring out, to
Yeah.
where that's the offering that you can give to this human world and this human existence to help us understand it a little bit better.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Like I said, the suffering part is like that's a big thing for me, I think. And like if I have any sort of inkling on how to alleviate suffering for other people, like
yeah.
please let me do that. Ooh, it's like that shit makes me emotional, you know?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had a realization the other day that I fight for the stories of the negativity that I have in my life,
Mhm.
and it's not only that I'm aware of them, it's just that I can find myself rationalizing the negativity of that story as to
Yeah.
being a factual thing, even though I know it's not. Actually yesterday in a yoga class, I was, in Shavasana, just like cracked wide open, had a great class, and this disparaging thought popped in my head, and it immediately made me just almost nauseous. Like, I felt so horrible about this thought, but I was able to push it out. And then I started
Mhm.
telling myself, I love myself. I love myself. That's one of the mantras when I start to get my
Yeah.
own shit. I tell myself, I
Yeah.
love myself. But I could feel my brain trying to go back and remember the thought that I just pushed out. And it
Yeah.
was like this internal tug of war of like my ego being like, no, we got to know, so we know what to look for in the future. And then my consciousness is like, no, it's just gone. Let it just be gone. We don't need to know so we can look at it in the future. Let's just release it. And it was this internal struggle. And finally, like, exhaustion set in, and I think probably fell asleep for a minute, but I didn't end up thinking of that thing that I had pushed out of my brain. But it was so interesting because I was so hard on myself to try to remember it. My story was so you can not think about it again. So I'm like, why don't just not think about it again in the first place?
Yeah, why don't we just stop?
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh. We're just so programmed to these stories, and listening to them and believing them, even though when we realize they're not even true anymore.
Yeah, and yeah, inundating ourselves with stuff, and then you're like, or I have the power to actually like stop this, you
Yes.
know. And again, like those of us that have more knowledge in these areas, that it's like, you know, the wanting and the willingness to like, help and realizing like, okay, I can tell this to one person, or I can help in some way get this out to like I said, more people, and kind of like just increase that level of healing in everybody. Because it's like, I said when you discover your own design, and then you're like, oh my God, and everybody's got one, you're like, me healing helps everybody.
Yeah.
Right. Me loving myself gives other people permission to love themselves. And it's like everything is this snowball effect, this like trickle on. And you're like, so it's truly like I get really like on a soapbox. I'm like, it's your responsibility to like, try to do this, try to live in a certain way that is positive, because what's the alternative? Doing this shit again? No,
Right,
thank
right.
no.
Nope. No, thank you. Well, so you're pushing a lot of this stuff together into those actualization moments for yourself. So you have the aesthetic stuff that you work with, human design that kind of adds all that together.
Yep.
Learning now how you want to present this to the world in some kind of as some kind of a package. You have your podcast that you do. Like there's so many different amazing platforms that you have to talk about this information and to inform the public about what's going on. How do you see this all working together in the next few years for you to continue this informative kind of just like mecca that you're working towards?
It's funny because one of the things in design is that, I'm a pure generator. And I have one channel. I
Ooh.
got like almost nothing going on my chart. Um we're not designed to have a 5-year plan, let alone know what we want for dinner tonight. And that was a huge relief to me, where I was like, I can just let that go, go to the next thing that feels good. And for me, this is the stuff that feels good. It's fun. It's fun to me. Um, I think it's just I'm in an experimentation phase of truly, like I said, put me in the laboratory so I can like figure this out. And but yet I see it crystallizing and becoming clear. Now, the funny thing though, it's like I feel, it's like like you just feel about yourself where you're like, oh my God, nobody gets this, nobody gets me, nobody understands like where this is all going. I'm only individual circuitry, but the thing that I love about it, the one channel that I have that I said is like the power to love yourself and self-love and your own behavior and all these things. I think of it as like a human crystal. And I'm not off on it. It's like this is a very traditional thing. It's not how it's described, but it's how I describe it. I'm like, oh, it's part of something called the centering circuit. I'm just so supposed to be myself with such conviction
Hmm.
about love. And I mean, love is like, I believe that is it, period. Like there's no more to that story, Um, when that's the energy and the power you're working with, I'm like, I'm just supposed to hold that frequency and wait for the people around me for however long
Hmm.
to come vibe with that.
Yeah.
Like I'm waiting to entrain you when you're ready for me. I can't do it for you, but I'm gonna be over here just being me and waiting.
Yeah.
That's actually like that is my plan. That is
All right. Just gonna be over here waiting. I love that. Play to your strengths, right?
right. I'm like that's what I'm wired for. So, just keep as long as it feels good, keep doing it and waiting for people to kind of like, yeah, have the understanding of like the awareness that I already have.
Hmm. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
introduce whoever wants to that.
Yeah. So if so, how do our listeners find you?
So you already mentioned I have a podcast, Beauty by Design, where it's kind of astrology. It is human design. Track the gates. If you want to learn more about the gates, you're like, hey, yeah, what about my sun in 45? I'm like, go check that episode out.
Hmm.
I'm a line one, so I go deep and I love all the details. I'm like, I don't. It's yeah, it's a lot. I do a lot of put meditations on there.
Hmm.
Meditation beauty rituals for the new and full moon. So many fun things. I'm like, I love podcasting, and I've realized that. And I have so many people in the aesthetics world, whether they're estheticians or injectors or what have you, all the world that I came from, and it's all people that I've done their charts for. So it's friends of mine.
Mm.
I'm like, for it, right? I'm like, I only have friends on, only people that I know and know me, and we'll talk about their experience with it, and so that's my big one. Um, Instagram, I'm at Mikaela MacLean. I'm not a big fan.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
The gram.
necessary evil at times.
It's a necessary evil. And then yeah, like at with Hannah at the Anamkara Healing Center, it's like that's where I'm gonna be, spending quite a bit of time and just being available. So those are my ways. And then of course, I keep alluding to this whole teaching thing. It's like that's what's in the works. That's what I'm developing right now is systems, like to basically bring that to people. And my focus is definitely those in that field. But I would never make that exclusive. I just feel like it's here for everyone. And in fact, I have to write up a description for her. I'm going to start doing like a human design 101
Mm.
class at the center. Each month is just kind of like bring your chart, come. We'll have a topic, to talk about, but then open floors. Like, what do you want to know about your chart and how to use it, and do some little bit of meditation, get into the body, all of that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So, I mean, I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, frankly, I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, whatever you're throwing at the wall and hoping to stick, it makes sense to me. It all sounds beautiful. And every time I talk to somebody that Hannah sent to me, I'm like, God, I should be in Spokane right now. Like, I don't know why. I'm in Seattle and I love Seattle, but like, God,
Yeah.
what you guys are doing over there just sounds so freaking cool. And just so many amazing minds just in one space just makes me so happy.
It's so fun, and I always have to talk about her when I can, but um it was the Cancer new moon circle, so not that long ago, and there was somebody that came who's from Spokane, had moved away to California, come back, and she looks at me, she's like, this was not here. And I was like, Hannah's the one that brought it. Like she's the one. And again, amazing. You look at her chart, it's like she's a projector to, like only tribal circuitry. She's here to create the container. She and I are both, 33 North nodes, but it's hilarious because you see it show up differently in people. And like she's created gate 33, that Leo gate is about privacy and retreat. And
Mm.
I'm like, she's built a place of privacy and retreat and mindfulness in the middle of downtown. And no, this community, all of these resources and all the, just didn't exist. And
Mm.
these people were here, but to have that place to bring everybody together is like a really, really beautiful thing that she's doing. And so, yeah, even if you're not here, you need to just come over and like,
I
you
do.
know,
I
come do a
do.
thing. 'Cause I come to it.
Yep, right, exactly. I know. I want to like plan a sound bath or something because, like I've met you now. I've met the I Am Alliance folks. I just interviewed Gary Nakarado, who's going to start doing Zoom stuff for Hannah with
Yep.
hypnotherapy and like all these things. And I'm like, oh God, there's just so much cool things happening at Anamkara. I just need to get over there and say what's up.
Totally. She just has that gift of like, again, line four, like bringing everybody together. She's always saying to me like that, her thing is about calling in the right people.
Mm,
And like, yeah, I love that because you know what you're doing there.
definitely.
Yeah.
Well, you seem like the right person for Hannah, and I'm so excited for you to offer your brilliance and your knowing for her at the Anamkara, and to continue to develop this modality that you're working towards and your way of teaching it. I'm so excited to hear. I know you don't have a 5-year plan, but I'm going to keep tabs on you over the next few years and just see what the hell's happening.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for your time. I'm so so grateful for you and the information that you've been able to share with us and the journey that you're on.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, once I actually have some sort of a plan, then you're like, maybe you have to come learn it.
Yes, most
You
definitely.
get,
Sign me
you
up.
get I love it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, love. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you so much for spending time with Mikaela and I. Check out the show notes for any links to get in touch with Mikaela or myself, or to maybe book a human design session with Mikaela. As always, please subscribe and like to the podcast or share it to those you feel might get something from it. Obeisance and love. We'll see you guys next time.